Be empowered. Be strong. Take charge. Speak life. Live life abundantly. Get with it now. You are now entering the chat room. Health Chat with Coach Jean, that is, where we debate, debunk, educate, empower, impart, and raise awareness on all things related to health, healing, and holistic well-being, body, mind, and spirit. Let's go.
Hey, greetings, everybody. Welcome back to another episode here in the chat room. Health Chat with Coach Jean, that is. Greetings. I'm just so excited to be back in the chat room with you all. Episode number 53. Can you believe it? It has been over a year now, since I've been a podcaster. My goodness, who would have thought it? I know I wouldn't have, but I am grateful to be here. Thank and praise God for this opportunity. And so, look, you already know I am God's girl. And I have the mostest health education and awareness on the planet. Yes, indeed. And I'm on a mission to help you to be better stewards over your health, on a mission to encourage, empower, and inspire you to take charge of your health and seek God for wisdom and instruction for what and how He will have you to do so you may prosper and be in health, at the same time, while your soul, your spiritual health is in check as well. And so, look, I am excited for our guest joining me here this week in the chat room. Look, let's just go ahead and get it popping up in here. Y'all already know how we do. Most gracious Father, I thank you for the gift, this opportunity to share the gift of health, healing, and a holistic approach to wellness with your people. And may something shared during this week's episode bless every listener. Father, I pray that you will forgive us of our sin and cleanse us from all sin and all unrighteousness, creating us a clean heart, a loving heart, a kind heart, a pure heart, and renew a right spirit within us. And may all experience your peace, comfort, love, joy, health, healing, and happiness from this moment going forward. In your precious Son's name, amen. And so, as you know, I do most of the time, depending on the topic here in the chat room, I'm going to go ahead and share this disclaimer with you all real quick. The information you hear on any Health Chat with Coach Jean broadcast is for informational purposes only, and it is not meant to diagnose or treat any illness or disease. Always, y'all heard me say that week in and week out. Always consult with your medical team before you start, resume, or make any changes to your treatment plan as prescribed by your personal physician and medical team. And so actually it was longer than that when I had my producer, Mr. Jerry Royce, join me here in the chat room for a discussion on the topic of diabetes, type 2 diabetes to be exact. But joining me this week here in the chat room, my guest will be sharing on the topic of childhood diabetes, aka juvenile diabetes, aka type 1 diabetes. And in accordance with the Juvenile Diabetes Research Fund here in Atlanta, Georgia, USA, over 200,000 of our young people under the age of 20 are living with type 1 diabetes, and over 60,000 are diagnosed every year. And in a 2020 report released by the Center for Disease Control here in Atlanta, the rates of new diagnosed cases of both type 1 and type 2 diabetes in children younger than the age of 20 has increased by 6.7% total and is on the rise. And so the theme for this week's topic centers around Harley's story as told by its author, who is my guest. Now, there's no cure for juvenile or type 1 diabetes. So if you are currently live streaming via Spreaker or under the sound of my voice on Facebook, you're hearing the audio, you know someone who has a child, or maybe you have a child with diabetes, but if you know someone who has a child with diabetes, you need to be calling them, texting them, sending them a DM, and telling them that Health Chat with Coach Jean is live streaming now, or, they have the dial-in option, share it with them. But look, the information that my guest is going to provide on this episode is going to help you, help your child, or your grandchild, or your niece, or your nephew, or your coworker, or coworker's child. It's going to help somebody's child to decrease their risk of associated health challenges, not just now, but as they grow. And that is very important because type 1, aka juvenile diabetes, there is no cure. And so with that said, my guest this week is Denise Gruzensky. She is a registered nurse and family nurse practitioner, and she has a love for animals, especially for rescued animals. She volunteers for local animal shelters. She is a mom to 4 children and a couple of fur babies as well. And she believes that animals teach very important life lessons. And she is the author of Not Like the Others, which is the first book in her series, Life Lessons from Fur Friends. And tonight, she's going to use her book, The Story of Harley, a rescued Yorkshire Terrier, to help you as parents and grandparents to talk to your children or grandchildren who may have been newly diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, help you to kind of maneuver through that, help your child to maneuver through that, knowing that they're going to be loved unconditionally regardless of their medical condition. And so without further ado, Denise, are you in the virtual building, my friend?
I am in the virtual house. Nice to see you again, or talk to you again.
Hi, yay! It's so nice to have you. Nice to hear your voice. How was your day?
It was busy seeing patients like my normal.
Yeah.
I see patients Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and how many patients do you see in a day, may I ask?
Well, typically I have cut back on work since we adopted the 4 kids. So I actually work Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, and I typically see patients for about 5 hours and usually about 13 to 15 patients a day.
Oh, okay. All right. That's a lot, though. That can be a lot, considering on the patient, what's going on, the amount of teaching they need, and other things. So that can be a lot. Well, I thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I tell my patients all the time, as a registered nurse, patient education was my favorite part about being a nurse. It's actually what encouraged me to be a nurse practitioner. I take quite a bit of time making sure patients understand exactly what's going on with their health, because really you're the best advocate for yourself. And if you don't understand what's going on, how can you do that?
You are so right about that. And unfortunately, I'm glad that you do that, because unfortunately you spend about 45 minutes in the waiting room, you get in the exam room, spend probably about another 30 minutes and see your provider for 5, and there's no time for patient teaching and education because they're already behind. So thank you so much for what you do, and I'm sure your patients love and appreciate you for taking the time out to teach and to educate them. And so, look, is there anything else you want our audience to know about you before I dive into the first order of business?
Well, I think you and I talked a little bit about this previously as well, but Harley's story really had a completely different direction that I never fully expected. It's actually done this on multiple levels, but I wrote the book in 2013 and didn't expect to go through infertility issues at the time. And my husband and I spent 4 years trying in vitro and several other different methods, and none of them were successful. But you know what? God had other plans for us. And we, in 2018, brought 4 siblings into our house. They were 1, 2, 3, and 4 at the time. They're full-blooded birth siblings, and they are now 4, 5, 6, and 7. So we've adopted 4 siblings since then. So the rescue of animals, I never really had I just never really you'd think it would have been a given thing that I would have thought about, but I had never thought about the implications for the fact that adoption and rescue would be part of my entire family. So we have kind of this family motto, who rescued who in our family. We have a rescued dog, rescued parents, and 4 rescued siblings.
Wow. You know what? That is so awesome. Every time I hear your story, I just love it. I love it more and more and more and more. I love you more and more and more and more because it takes a special person to open up their heart and their home to children and rescue animals and show them that unconditional love that they may not have ever experienced before and may not have received had it not been for you and your husband. So thank you so much for that. So listen, can you go ahead and explain to our audience now? Our audience here this evening comes from across the United States, mostly from overseas. We have a large overseas audience here on Health Chat with Coach Jean podcast show. That's why it's a global podcast. Can you explain a little bit to our listeners what type 1 diabetes is?
So oftentimes people are most knowledgeable about type 2 diabetes because it gets diagnosed later on in life. And with type 2 diabetes, your body doesn't know how to use the insulin, whether that's because of obesity, which we know has become a huge problem, especially within the United States. But your body's not utilizing it. So when you think about the way type 2 diabetes often ends up getting treated, it's with medications that help your body be able to use insulin. Versus type 1 diabetes or a type 2 diabetic that their pancreas is kind of tanked out from producing insulin. Type 1 diabetes, where our pancreas isn't producing insulin. So therefore, it's automatic that you're going to need to supplement insulin. And that's where insulin injections, where insulin pumps, where that comes into the picture. But the symptoms for them would be very similar. It's going to be a matter of, with type juvenile diabetes is most often going to be type 1 diabetes where they need insulin immediately because their pancreases are not making insulin.
Right. And unfortunately, because of lifestyles and everything, other factors, we know that now children are getting type 2 diabetes. Again, like you said, right? Type 2 diabetes is normally not found in a person until they hit midlife, 40s, 50s and up. But now we're seeing more and more cases of our young people less than 20 with type 2 diabetes. And that's why the numbers are rising because it's those who are developing type 2 diabetes at a younger age, less than 20 years old, in addition to those who have type 1 diabetes or juvenile diabetes. So that's why we're seeing the rise in that. It blew my mind when I was researching this the other day and saw them statistics. But we talked about this before too, Denise. And, I had told you this. One of my pet peeves, and it makes me cringe when I hear people refer to children as little people. They say things like, oh, they're just little people. But there's a reason why pediatrics is a specialty, right? Because children are not just little people. And we know that illness, disease, medications, and medication dosage affects them differently. And so with that said, what are your thoughts about that? And do the signs and symptoms of diabetes differ in a child than what we see in adults?
So I think that I completely agree with you. I mean, you announced at the beginning, I'm a family nurse practitioner. That means that back when I was trained in the early or late 1990s, boy, that's so long ago. Anyway, but when I was trained back then, when I was trained in family practice. So I was trained from age 0 to birth to older adult to end of life. But if you don't use it, we say this in healthcare all the time, if you don't use it, you lose it. So I worked in emergency medicine. I did some work for a cruise line for a while as a nurse practitioner. I've done a lot of different stuff as a nurse practitioner, but specifically since around 2006, I haven't treated children. So I would never continue to treat children at this time without going back and upping my game and my education about them, because they are not just little people. So my practice consists of 18 and over, and it has for quite a long time. There are so many things, something as simple as a medication order where a child is weight-based and an adult, we have kind of standard dosaging. But definitely not for a child. You would have to weight-base their medication. So they are definitely not just little adults, and their healthcare is very different. Their preventative medicine is different. Their annual exams, you're looking for different things and trying to update different things and looking at different areas for them than you are for adults. So that's one thing. I completely agree with that. And then when it comes to symptoms, the symptoms for children and adults are going to be the same. But the big difference in adults and children, especially if you're looking at the younger children. So you're looking at children, one of the age groups for the presentation for kids with juvenile diabetes is that, 4 to 6 years of age. And they can be diagnosed into early puberty, but that's kind of sometimes where we see it first is 4 to 6. That's one of those first peaks. And think about your 4 to 6 year old if you have children or you have grandchildren, and they really can't explain to you what they're feeling, right? My child can come to me and say, "Mommy, my tummy hurts." And what it really means is they're hungry. Their tummies are growling and they're feeling like they're hungry. So they're really not able to put their symptoms into words. And that correlates into pets with diabetes, because that's where Harley's story originated, was from our Yorkshire Terrier having diabetes. And so the signs and symptoms are the same: urinating more frequently, drinking more water, eating more, weight gain or weight loss, being extra tired. But how are you going to see that in a child, or how are you going to see that in a pet? So you need to know what your child or your pet's normals are so that you can know their abnormals. So for instance, observing, was your child potty trained and now suddenly they're not and they're having accidents again? Same with an animal. Are they more irritable, or do they have behavior changes? Those are the kind of things that you're watching for. And then you're watching, are they going to the bathroom? Are they asking to go to the bathroom more frequently? Are they drinking more water than they were before? And you just have to, as a parent or grandparent, know what your child's normal is so that you're able to understand what the abnormal is.
Right. And, we talked about this before. Not only listen, but you have to be observing your child,
Mm-hmm.
And so, I knew where you were going with that when you said the 90s, because I've been a nurse since 1987, girl. So I already knew where you were going with that, where you were headed with that. Yes.
We've been around a hot minute, have we, Miss Jean?
I know you're right. We've been around a hot minute, but we've seen a lot, right? We have seen a lot, both personally and in our professions. We have experienced and seen a lot. And so I would love for you to share with our listeners, what is Harley's story? Tell us a little bit about Harley's story.
So in 2006, before I ever met my husband and I was married, I rescued Harley. And he was a standard-sized Yorkshire Terrier, so not the little tiny minis, 6 pounds. He was about 12 pounds. And in 2010, he started doing some of the same things I talked about. I noticed that he was drinking more water. He was going to the bathroom more often, and he was having accidents where he was potty trained. And I called our vet and I said, look, in a human, this is diabetes. What does this mean in a dog? And the vet said, please bring him in. It also means diabetes. And so for pets, they're going to want to be around the same as what we want humans, that's 70 to 120 for their blood sugars. You're trying to keep them on the slightly higher side because they can't tell you when they get too low, when they feel the symptoms of being too low. So took him in, and I say all of that because Harley's blood sugar was over 400 when I took him in.
Wow.
And I will never forget what the vet said to me. He said, it's actually because I started crying. I was like, oh no, did I miss this? Should I have found this earlier? Did I wait too long? All of those things that we do with our pets and our kids when we're looking at their health. And the vet said to me, you know what? He said, Denise, there are so many owners that don't know what symptoms to watch for. And by the time they bring their pet in, it's too late. They're in organ failure. They're too sick, and we oftentimes have to put them down. And so I wrote Harley's story because I didn't want that to ever happen to another pet. It's such a treatable, and I hate to even call it an illness, right? But it's so treatable. And, to have somebody's precious pet put down because they didn't know the symptoms to look for, or, abandoned because they didn't think they could take care of them, or you have special needs pets that need to be rescued. And so that was truly a passion of mine at the time when I wrote it. I just thought, I don't want a child or a parent to ever have to let go of a precious furry family member because they didn't know what to look for. And what ended up coming out of it was a lot more than that. I had 2 junior editors at the time. They were pretty young, and I don't actually remember their exact ages at the time, but I think the youngest was around 6 or 7. And within the year after they read it, she went to her parents and said, Mom and Dad, I'm having some of the same symptoms that Harley did in that book that Denise wrote. And sure enough, unfortunately, she ended up having juvenile diabetes and will need insulin for the rest of her life. So that was an area I never expected. It was completely unexpected when I wrote the book, but such an amazing thing and so dear to my heart because, wow, such a huge, huge thing to have happen.
That was totally unexpected. You wrote the book for one purpose, with one intent in mind. But God had a whole nother intention for Harley's story. I think it's awesome. And if you don't mind, I want to read, I call it a little testimony, but a review from one of the Little Miss young ladies that left a review on after reading Harley's story. 8 years old, and she said, I like the book a lot, especially the dogs Harley and Teddy. I read the book before I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. It helped me understand that people and dogs can have diabetes and that there are special things they must do to stay well, like checking blood sugars and eating healthy. I think you will like Harley's story and learn a lot about diabetes too. And then the review from her parents, the parents of this little 8-year-old girl. As parents of a recently diagnosed child with type 1 diabetes, the issues this book addresses are real and important for a child with any health challenge to have it emphasized frequently. Shortly after our 8-year-old daughter was diagnosed, she wrote us a note. I hope I'm not too much work with my diabetes. Harley's family clearly still loved him just the same, even if he was more work to them. This book highlights that love is the same for a child or pet after the diagnosis of a health challenge. I just thought that was it's just so beautiful what the work that you have done, the work and the effort and the love that you put into this book, how it is helping children and parents of children with diabetes. So I just had to read that for our listening audience, those who are live streaming, listening to the audio on Spreaker or on Facebook, and those who will download this episode afterwards and catch the replays. I just think it's awesome. And so clearly the connection between Harley and children with diabetes is duly noted. Number one, who is a child? Who is usually a child's first best friend? Their pet, right?
Right. Yep. For sure.
And so I just think it's duly noted, and I just love it. I love it. And so
that makes my heart swell,
Denise,
by the way. Hearing those reviews are what makes, it just makes it all. I had no idea that would come of it, and my heart just swells.
Yeah, because I got teary-eyed reading it, reading their reviews, and it's just the fact that this is just the beginning. I'm sure there are other reviews. That's the one that I was able to get a hold of. But the people that you are helping and going to help in the future, and not just here in the United States, but abroad. I mean, we have a huge overseas audience that downloads Health Chat with Coach Jean every week and that listen here in the United States. So I'm just so excited for you, the work that you are doing through this book that you did not intend for it to have the effect that it is having, but it is having that effect. And that to me is just a miracle and God's just perfect plan for Harley's story and Harley's life, right? It's a tribute to Harley's life.
It really is, and
that's the way I look
lets
at
him
it.
continue to be it continues to let him be part of my life. I get to continue to talk about him. I continue to get to share him with other people, and he gets to continue to connect.
Yes, definitely. And so in that review, I just read one little girl's story about what she learned from reading Harley's story. Are there any other key points that children can take away from reading about Harley?
Well, when I was looking at trying to be an author, a children's that brought this story into schools, I know how powerful Harley's story is just on its own, with the connection and children not feeling like they're alone, and understanding more about others that may not be exactly like everyone else. That's what a kid really wants to be, is they want to be like everyone else. So helping them feel more connected and having respect for others with differences. And again, I was looking for, I was praying, I want something else as well that I can go into schools with. And one of my really good girlfriends works for a shelter called Wayside Wave in Kansas City. And they have a no more bullying program through Wayside Wave. And I was so excited to become part of that. I now have workbooks through them. They have a whole program that you can go into schools with. And I really feel like, unwanted aggressive behavior, and bullying is really about a power imbalance. And we know that happens, oftentimes starts with animals because they are so powerless. And then children with special needs can be on the receiving end. They can sometimes be the bully as well, but because of that power struggle. But it's that desire to have more power where they feel powerless. And children who abuse animals often experience abuse or neglect themselves. So Wayside Waste uses animals to actually help teach kids some fundamental core values of responsibility, compassion, being humane, having self-control, integrity, respect, and courage. And when you teach these 7 core values, you can actually work on no more bullying and decreasing it. So I was so excited to find that, because now if I go into a school, I go in with Harley's story, I go in with Harley connecting to kids, but I am also able to go in either for 1 day or for 5 days with this no more bullying program as well. So it just felt like it rounded everything out for me with kids in such a great way.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Oh, goodness. Yeah, that is so dope to me. And you know what? We live in an age now to where you have children literally harming, themselves or trying to kill themselves because of bullying, because they've been bullied and they can't take it anymore. And so that is a really serious issue, And let's face it, children don't want to be different than their friends, right? They don't want to be
right.
They want to. They don't want to stand out in a way that's opposite from their friends. And so that is a difficult time. Especially once they start going to school and making friends, and then they hit them tween years and teen years, right? They want to fit in, feel that they fit in, and they're like everybody else. And I remember we was talking the other day. I could not remember what that Erickson's,
the hierarchy, Maslow's hierarchy.
Yeah.
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 Or Maslow's,
okay.
No, it's Erickson's. You're right. It's Erickson's stages of development.
Right.
Right? That's what we were talking about with Erickson's stages of development.
That's what we was talking about. Yeah, Erickson's stages of development. And between that, at adolescent stage, especially the identity versus role confusion. That was what I was trying to think of when we was talking the other day. It's real. It's real. They try to figure out who they are.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Go ahead.
No, but in early childhood too, where it's their autonomy versus shame and doubt, right? And the shame of that they feel like they're different than someone else. We all know that having a special needs shouldn't be a shameful thing, but kids don't know that because, like you just said, they're trying to be the same.
Right. They're trying to be the same. You're right. And so really, when you look at it, though, when you look at Erickson's stages of development, aren't we all that way, at least to probably get to my age, 57, almost 58 years young, to where you're like, whatever, they can think what they want to think. But I can tell before then, it's different, It does matter what your peers think.
It does, and it takes many, many years, like you just said. I don't know that it wasn't until I was in my 40s before, and even now there are times when, somebody will say something and I'll take a step back and I'll be like, well, how much does that really mean to me? Like, what do I think about where I'm at and what's going on? So we still have to step back and think about it, even at our age. But being real happy with who we are and where we are in life.
That's true. I have to admit, though, once I hit 50, which is now, oh, goodness, how many years ago was that? 8 years ago? I was just like, what the heck? Forget about it, as we say in New York.
What they say doesn't matter. Well,
now.
I'm 47. I'm just a little bit behind. So.
But look how long it took to get there. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And look how long it took. Like 50 years it took for me to feel that way. So, I cannot imagine the baby. I say the little babies, even if they're teenagers, because at my age, they're all babies. But, I can't even imagine. And so, can parents of children with diabetes learn from Harley's story?
Well, I think, first of all, like we said at the beginning, I think it's really important. And even if your child is diagnosed with diabetes, it's really important to know the symptoms to watch for, their behaviors, and to really be observant and listening to your child. I think that works pre-diabetes diagnosis. I think that definitely is after a diabetic diagnosis as well. And then with that understanding about, we're nurses, so we learned about Erickson's, developmental stages, and but knowing how hard it is for your child and showing your child that you understand what they're going through, right? Connecting with your child. And even if to us at our, as at an older age, it might seem silly how they feel about being different, remembering that their feelings matter. And that's a really important piece for your child, that they feel connected. And so Harley's story can show a diabetic child that they aren't alone. Even a pet can have the same issue that they do. And that connection, I've mentioned that I've gone to juvenile diabetic walks before. And the first time I ever went, it was just so impactful, because the first time a diabetic child picked up the book and looked at it and looked up at me and said, "Oh my goodness, you mean a dog can have the same thing? A cute dog like that can have the same thing that I do?" That is just so powerful for them to feel connected. And so I really feel that that's something parents can learn too, about helping their children feel connected and not feel like they're alone, or that they are that different, that there are other people like them. And actually, even in the book, Harley meets other pets with special needs. He says he feels like he's alone. And then he meets a cat that has asthma that technically actually gets treated the same way a child with asthma does. And I have a picture of that cat in the book. And he meets another dog that's got 3 legs, and he meets a dog that's blind and deaf. So, he realizes that even as a diabetic dog, he's not alone, that there are other dogs with special needs besides himself. And so that connection is built into the story for Harley learning it, and for a child to realize, my feelings of being alone I'm not even by myself there. Look, the dog even talks about it.
Wow. I'm just in awe of how you put all of that together in a book in a way that children can understand it. Because let me tell you, I don't believe in astrology, but for this, so you can understand, I'm a Virgo, right? Born in September, very analytical, very, I got to think and come up with A, B, C, X, Y, Z plan. I'm just like, how you simplified that. I mean, to where a child can understand that I'm in such awe. You are just, look, Denise, you got it going on as far as I'm concerned. Very talented. That's a gift. That's a gift.
Well, I feel goodness. God really led to all of that, right? Because like I said, some of it was unexpected. So I love it. I love writing. I love sharing that. I love teaching. And God just really led in a beautiful way.
Yeah, most definitely. And so I believe you are, you said you did a diabetes walk one time. So what outside of the book, what do you participate in as far as organizations, other advocacy work with for children with diabetes?
Well, COVID has actually really put a kind of a crunch down on all of that. And then I moved in the middle of COVID. We moved from California to Texas for my husband's job. So I have to admit that I haven't been as active recently as I would like to be. But I plan on getting back into it again. So I've been active with the Juvenile Diabetes Association. I've been part of that. I would like to. Usually I'm a vendor at some of their events with the book, or sometimes I just pay to walk and just walk. And I have a Harley story t-shirt that I wear while I walk. My whole family actually before the kids, we haven't done a walk since we adopted the kids. That has also kept me busy. So, but our family has done a walk. I plan on having our kids get involved in that as well. And then I have been very involved with rescues. So, and specifically helping out rescues for pets with special needs. So I'm a regular donator to multiple rescues, and then have been involved in multiple animal rescue pet events with Harley Story as well.
Right. Well, I appreciate the work that you are doing. And so, it's amazing how fast time flies, and we got probably about 5 more minutes. What is
That's crazy. Yes, it went by really fast.
Yeah, it goes by so fast. I think because we're having fun. I have a lot of fun doing this. You would not think I'm introverted, would you? Most people say, nah, you're not no introvert. I'm like, yes, I am. They don't believe me, Denise. But anyway.
But introverted, it's because it's how so I'm the same. Ironically, I'm the same. And what I learned is how you recharge, right? So we can be friendly and outgoing and really personable, but how we recharge is part of that, is that piece of being introverted. Because I didn't know I was introverted either until the last 5 years when I discovered that. And that is how I recharge, is being on my own.
Exactly. And that's what I try to explain to people, because it's not being shy. It's that's just how we recharge. But anyway, I said all that to say I'm having a lot of fun. I love what I do.
Me too.
And, people just don't believe that I'm introverted. But I said all that to say, time flies when you're having fun.
Right.
I sometimes digress. My apologies. But what is the one thing that you want to leave our listening audience with? What is the one key thing that you hope that they take away from hearing about
I think that we should
story?
I think we should all have a mutual respect for everyone despite our differences. And actually, in the Life Lessons from Fur Friends series, there will be a book coming up about diversity and friendship through diversity. But I think just even with this, a mutual respect despite differences with each other, caring for both friends, family, animals, anybody with special needs, and helping them feel connected. So they know that they're not alone and that they will be unconditionally loved. That's my big takeaway.
And what a key takeaway, especially for the times we're living in with all the racial disparities and all this other stuff going on. Oh my goodness. What a key takeaway that you can use across the board, right? Across the board. Denise, where can they connect with you and obtain a copy of Harley's story?
So I will be very curious, since you have listeners throughout the world, because I am not 100% sure how Amazon works outside of the U.S. and whether or not you can obtain Harley's story from there. Specifically, it will be Life Lessons from Fur Friends. So make sure there's 2 editions of the book. So make sure when you're looking for it on Amazon, you're looking for Life Lessons from Fur Friends. And I would really like to hear from you if you are not able to obtain it and interested in obtaining it and you live outside the United States. I do sell it as well on my website, which is www.denisegruzinski.com. You might have to look at Miss Jean's page to figure out how to spell it, but it's DenisGruzensky.com. That is also where I'm at Instagram. It's Denise_Gruzensky, and on Facebook at Denise Gruzensky. So you can find me at all of those locations, and you can always instant message me if you would like to, because I'm happy to help you obtain a book if you're interested in getting one.
Wonderful, wonderful. Because look, we know social media. I mean, I got folks from Africa trying to friend me and everywhere. So we know that goes all over the world, including, websites all over the world. And so, Denise, once again, I just want to thank you. Thank you for joining me on this episode here in the chat room, Health Chat with Coach Jean, sharing Harley's story and sharing the connection between Harley and the children with diabetes. Oh, my goodness. You are a phenomenal lady, and I appreciate you. And thank you so much for taking time out of your busy, busy schedule. Not only do you see patients all day, but you got 4 babies at home, plus fur babies, and a husband. So I just thank you so much. I really do.
Thank you so much for having me, Miss Jean. I've had such a fun time chatting with you.
And listen, don't be a stranger. Let's keep in touch. And you be safe and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Right back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Denise. And so to you, our listeners, do not forget to connect with me, Nurse Coach Jean Turner. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Health Chat with Coach Jean. Remember, my name is spelled Jean. That is Health Chat with Coach Jean on Facebook and Instagram. If you are on LinkedIn, follow me at Nurse Coach Jean. And if you are in the house, Clubhouse that is, which is now available on Android as well as iPads and iPhones, then look, you can connect with me on Clubhouse at Nurse Coach 63, at Nurse Coach the number 63. You can also go to my website at www.spiritofawarrior.life for all your health and wellness coaching, seminars, workshops, and books that will help you on your journey to holistic healing. body, mind, soul, and spirit. And so, again, a very special thanks to my guest this week, Miss Denise Gruzensky. A special shout out to my producer, the Batman of Charm City, Mr. Jerry Royce Live. And a hearty thank you to you, my listening audience. Until next time, if God says the same, I wish you peace and health. Deuces. Have a great week. Remember, we are still in a pandemic, so be safe, mask up, wash your hands, and distance as much as you can. Peace and health. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for another episode here in the chat room. Health Chat with Coach Jean, that is. Until next time, if God says the same, I pray peace, health, love, and well-being for you and your family. God bless you.